back to the Fitzin Project. I am Rachel Fitzpatrick, and I'm very, very, very happy that you're here with me today. And I hope you grab your favorite drink, whether it be a coffee or a tea or just a water, and you can cozy up to this conversation with Regan. She is amazing and a full-on spiritual guru. I really enjoyed getting to talk with her, getting to know her, and she's also an author of her own book, her own memoir, so to speak, Tragic Magic. So I think you're really going to love our conversation. But before we dive into that, did you have like a really good weekend? How prepared do you feel for your holidays? I don't know about you, but I hosted with Celessa and my mom Gwen amazing Presence Over Presence Part 2 workshop, and it kind of flows right into this conversation with Regan that you are going to see or hear actually, and see if you're watching on YouTube. But it's such a beautiful time to truly reflect and give back the real purpose of what our life is about. So before I get any further into that, I also want to give an offering for this week, specifically this week. So if you listen to this as it rolls out, great, you're right on time. And if not, it's okay. The offer is always available to reset, but I'm doing something super special on Friday, and it's the first time I've ever hosted anything like this. It's a pay what you want, and we're going to be asking yourself, what are you trying to call in for 2026? And when that light returns from the winter solstice and your new moon weekend that's coming up, who are you ready to be when the light returns? So my masterclass on Friday is going to be diving into basic Christmas carol theme, like your past, present, and future. And we're going to be vision boarding on Friday together. So I would love for you to join. It's about 90 minutes on Zoom, and take or leave whatever you need during that time. And just the goal here is that there's no goals that we're setting for 2026. It's intentions. Everything is just intention based. So we are done with New Year's resolutions. We're not doing that anymore. We don't subscribe, totally unsubscribe to New Year's resolutions. And instead, we're calling in intentions. Intentions for how we get our deepest desires. So anyway, if you want to roll with something like that, it's available. It's in the show notes. I'd be honored that you would even show up and pay what you want, again, because there is no price on alignment, so and also honor your season, honor your own commitments. But right now, the recording will not be available after, so you would need to join live, and if the recording is available after, it will be at a set price. So anyway, I hope to see you on Friday. Without further ado, I also hope you enjoy this beautiful conversation with me and Regan. Welcome to the Fitzin Project. And I'm actually really honored that you're here, Miss Regan Carruthers. Yeah?
Regan Carruthers. But that's okay.
Carruthers.
It's a mouthful. It's a mouthful.
I spoke it out loud, and then I read it, and I'm like, Regan Carruthers, but then I will still say words. I'm very happy that you are joining me today, because I know you have a powerful story with you, and it is going to align for what my listeners and everybody within the Fitzin Project, what we love to hear. So do you want to give a little background about yourself first?
Yeah, that's always such a big question, right? It all begins at the beginning for me when my mom made a incredibly important decision to enroll me in a school beginning at the age of 3, where we meditated every day and did Tai Chi for gym and later, when we were a little bit older, photographed our energy field with Kirlian film and sang devotional songs informed by the research of a man named Dr. Maxwell Maltz. He wrote the important book, Psycho-Cybernetics, which birthed the positive psychology movement. And he was a mentor of the founder of my school, and he was on the board. So a lot of what we sang and were sort of guided to understand came from his research. And I don't know where I'd be without it. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'd be in the exact same space. I doubt it. It was not just a safe place. It was a place where what we're all born with wasn't enculturated out of me. And while I made a conscious decision at the age of 9, really to disconnect from the things that I was innately connected to, it was too much. Like, I could hear other people's thoughts. I could see things that other people didn't. There was just way too much information coming at me. And then the openness, right, of a meditation practice or mindful movement like Tai Chi, it was just like I was this open vessel, and it's not all great. Anyway, I closed it all down and just sought norms. Just wanted to be a normal kid with safe places to be, because my home was both violent and emotionally really intense. I had a mother who diagnosed herself as a manic depressive in 1961, when it wasn't really, kind of top of mind for psychiatrists back then. She just took it out of the air, like the diagnosis floating on by, and she grabbed it and named it. So anyway, my house was intense, and I had these, wisdom traditions and this way of being that was instilled in my school, but it wasn't enough. So it all closed down when I asked it to. I actually commanded it to at the age of 9, when there was an entity that used to kind of harass me. It's the only way I can say to describe it.
Yeah.
And I just, I was so scared, and I screamed out loud for it all to stop, and it did. And it didn't come back until the age of 27. So I had a dramatic awakening then as a junior executive. And I was at a national sales meeting. Not a great place for a Kundalini awakening, but anyway, so it was. And, that changed me. And it changed the direction of my life. I found myself staff at the Heart Math Institute a few years later, leading retreats and programs for business audiences with Bruce Cryer, who was their CEO at the time. And I thought that was what I was going to do. I thought that was my calling. And it turned out pretty quickly not to be. And I returned to corporate life for a lot of reasons, which I detail in my memoir. And made the best of that, rose to, executive ranks in Silicon Valley, all the while having this understanding and this inner way, even though I was distracted and not disciplined. That came in my mid-40s, and was able to just, out of, circumstantial change in my life, I was able to have this be my full-time job, to continue to integrate the wisdom I hold and to be of service to other people. So I do that out of my yoga center, which is down my driveway. Left my life in California pretty dramatically, which I can talk about why. Did that a few years ago. And just
I love it.
chopping wood and carrying water, as they say.
Man, if I had a dollar for the amount of times I've heard that in the past 2 months, that is something that I must really look into, chop wood, carry water, because that has been coming to me too often in an irregular sense. Just me personally. So this podcast is basically for me.
Well, and it's for all of us, right? How do we stay connected to divine presence in doing mundane chores, right? I mean, that's what life is. We're in this body, we're in this, third dimensional reality. And our task is to embody the love of God in our humanness. And that is not easy to do. And if anybody tells you it's easy, they're lying to you. It requires devotion and discipline, not anything that this culture tends to celebrate. We celebrate quick fixes, and this is not one.
I love that you just said, and the love of God, and I want to tap into that, because you started this journey as a 4-year-old where your mother made a great decision putting you into your meditation school. And I'm very partial to the 4-year-old community because I have a son who's 4,
Aw.
and I just transferred him into a Christian school myself, and just watching that blossom has just been more of a gift to me, I feel like, than anything. And I will tell you, I wouldn't have classified myself as a Christian 2, 3 years ago. I wouldn't have done that. But knowing and reading and diving more into this realm and this world, I can't honestly, truthfully say I can be like, any other way as far as, like, with God. Maybe not even as a Christian, but, like, with God more so now, knowing about the meditation and the realms that, like you just said, we're in this 3D. This is for everybody in this human experience. But with that, having, like, that love of God, it has been, a game changer, and I feel like it is for you too. And you came back to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the point. That's why we exist, frankly. That was super clear to me the morning I awakened. So it was interesting how that happened. So here I am in San Francisco at this corporate meeting. And anyway, there's a lot going on, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of darkness. I'm not afraid. I'm naming it. I'm, kind of fighting the good fight at work in a way. So maybe that was part of what was going on. But I'm, smoking my Marlboro Lights and maybe having a shot of vodka before I have to go back down and present to executive whoever. And I just wanted a decent night's sleep. I was so stressed. My best friend had come to the meeting because she was interviewing in the city. Anyway, I just wanted to get a good night's sleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night and my eyes were still closed, but I was terrified. I knew someone was in my room. And then I opened my eyes, and there's that same entity that man that used to harass me as a kid, standing at the end of my bed. His hair is kind of long, looks a little like Jesus, like in between like a hippier version, like hippie, like Woodstock kind of hippie. And his arms are crossed and he's kind of staring at me. And I sat up in bed and I just looked at him and said, "It's you. It's only you. I'm not afraid of you." And I went back to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning, all I could feel was the love of God. I had nothing but forgiveness for my abusive stepfather, for the executives doing, bad things. Yeah, I just had nothing but love. And that actually transformed my stepdad because he's the only one that I could reach by phone. I didn't know how long my awakened state was going to last. And while I didn't feel urgent, I felt a desire to communicate back to my family, particularly my mom, and I couldn't reach her. And the only person I could reach was my stepfather, who was really the focal point of my trauma growing up. And yeah, I just told him how much I loved him and that I understood him and that I understood that it was his wounding, that was driving his behavior. It was the trauma that he had known. That I just loved him. And he dropped the phone and comes back a few seconds later and he says, "Well, Blonde Beauty, I don't have an explanation for this, but a golden eagle just landed on the crabapple tree in the backyard." And then he pauses again, comes back to the phone and says, "Again, Regan, I don't understand. There's now a red fox looking up at this eagle." Well, he's Comanche. He's a lot of other things, but he's Comanche. And, in the indigenous traditions, the eagle is the divine and a red fox is a noble messenger. So anyway, this violent man has been kind and gentle ever since, and that's been 30 years. Yeah, energy does change things, and the love that is God, unfortunately, God is a triggering word for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And even an institution like Christianity, I mean, I could talk about that all day long. It's about Jesus. It's about what he taught, which is not dissimilar from what Krishna taught or Muhammad or Buddha. It's all about love.
It is.
Love your God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself, and love your enemies. That's the
Yeah.
harder part.
That's so hard. That is the thing because it's true. Like hurt people do hurt people. And I feel like unless you can overcome with that forgiveness and that love, that innate knowing that you can love back, it doesn't break the cycle until
No.
like you have your sign or I think when you hurt someone and then they come back with pure forgiveness with a pure heart and it's purity of I love you even though XYZ happened however many years ago, that does would change somebody in an instant. Especially seeing some really cool animals outside, like kind of
Yeah.
classifying that, or
Yeah,
validating it.
and to me, it was about the energy. It was about the energetics of what I was connected to and holding. Lasted for about 3 years, and it was a wild ride. I mean, if anybody tells you a spiritual awakening is like unicorns and rainbows, they haven't had one. It is a absolute purge post-awakening of everything inside of you that is in the way of your direct conscious union with God.
Yeah.
And so that's messy. For me, it certainly was. It's kind of like being trained to be a Jedi. Luke Skywalker in that dark tunnel with, Darth Vader and all the things that he's absolutely terrified of, all a construction of his mind, and all there to teach him, can you hold the light in the presence of darkness, particularly your own? Because if you can't love that and accept all of that, you certainly can't do that for anybody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I learned that without a handbook. There is not a post-awakening handbook that I have found. If you happen to know one, that'd be good to have. And I just figured it out as I went along. I had a dear friend who was a Christian mystic who led a Unity church, and my school began in the basement of the local Unity church. Anyway, he was helpful. We were kind of like a sanity check. But when I finally learned how to embody unconditional divine love in the presence of demonic forces that were coming at me, they stopped coming.
This is just the most divine timing for all of it. And yeah, I would definitely agree. Like when you can fully embody like that full on love, full on forgiveness, like it quits. It's like you're untouchable. And then how do you get to be a steward of that? And you're so tender with it and but yet sharing and giving with all of that. So what's your playbook after if you were to write one?
Every day is a new day to return to presence. I'm a human being. It's not like every day is this perfect samadhi. Every day you work at it.
Hmm.
And there's always more. There's always more to heal. There's always more to understand. The heart, like is infinite in its presence. So you're never going to fully know. Not in this dimension anyway, I don't think. But can you be in the process every day of trying to remember?
Yeah. And what's your main modality for that? Is it prayer, meditation, both?
Yeah. Yeah. Prayer and meditation and not a singular event. I mean, I would if I had to count how many times I said a prayer throughout the course of a day, right? It's not this singular event. It is this ongoing awakened consciousness. So sometimes I might sit, for quite a while, sometimes not at all. But it doesn't mean as if I am disconnected from that presence, right? It's always a relationship that I am always trying to be conscious of, right? And to embody as best I can. And some days are, easier than others, but it's the intending
Yes. And
matter
with that
that
intention.
matters. That matters. Sometimes you'll have a blissful day and some days you won't, and that's okay. There's more learning in the suffering anyway. Yeah, and so just knowing what the felt sense of that is, right? What does it feel like to be consciously connected to God? because there is a felt sense to it. If you're more auditory, what is the sound of that energy, that intelligence, that quality of love? What does it have to say? And do you have the inner conditions to hear it? Because it's always there. The only thing that's variable is you. So knowing what the audible voice is, right? Because we hear inner dialogue all day long. And if anybody says they don't, well, then they're really not aware, self-aware at all. The more you meditate, the quieter this gets, and you learn how to turn it on and off and up and down. But it is, something like yoga, right? The whole point of asana is just to create the inner conditions for meditation. That's part of it, right? It's like you're wanting to have this important conversation in a loud room.
Yeah.
So learning how to quiet that, and then learning how to be guided by that, and then having the courage and the clear seeing to act from that place, right? It's not just feeling it and connecting to it. The only thing that matters is your behavior.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Like, that is literally the hook, line, and sinker to all of it. It is your behavior. You can talk your talk all day long, but walking the walk is totally different. And when you're bombarded and getting hijacked left and right, it's hard to stay on your path, on your, for lack of a better word, straight and narrow. That's not a straight and narrow at all. So, or weaving in and out of it, of what all may come.
Yeah, and as Jesus said, narrow is the way.
But you had an experience, and I want you sort of kind of tapped on it, but I want you to tap on it or dive into that, where after you had your visitor in the night, something else happened to get you where you are today.
Well, that was much later. Yeah, so I'm old.
Okay.
I'm going to be 59 in a few weeks. So I don't know. I'm getting up there. So that awakening happened at 27.
Gotcha. Okay.
But having moments of clear seeing, clear access, right? Had a lot of those between 27 and 50, almost 9. But almost 4 years ago, I was working on my book. I was in Santa Cruz, California at the time. I'd built a life there for 25 years, first to be staff at the HeartMath Institute at their headquarters in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And then, then the rest of it, right? Anyway, so we had a rather dystopian response to the COVID virus in California. We were locked down basically for 2 years, on and off. That's a whole other podcast. But anyway, I just needed to get away from the home. I needed quiet. And so I rented an Airbnb in Joshua Tree, which is in the high desert outside of Palm Springs, known kind of for the powerful energetics of the place. If you've never been, I highly recommend it. But anyway, so there I was in the middle of nowhere working on Tragic Magic, and I would have a particular prayer and ritual before I would sit down to write. And so here I am, put the fire on. It was December of 21. I was chilly. And in that quiet, the trusted voice said, "You must urgently move home." That was it. No explanation, definitely urgent in choice of word, but no fear in the transmission. That's not how this works. But I knew the truth of it. So I came out of meditation and looked to see if I had enough bars on my phone to make a phone call. Because literally, I'm in the middle of the high desert. I do. The first call I make is to a realtor in St. Louis, Missouri. That's home. I said, "Andrea, God says I have to urgently move home. I do what I'm told. So I'm flying out of Palm Springs in the morning. Will you help me find where God wants me to be?" She's like, "Yeah, sure." Second phone call was to my husband. "God says I need to urgently move home." So he didn't question it. He went right on Southwest, figured out how to use points to get me from Palm Springs to St. Louis the following morning. He's like, "I'm not getting in the way of you and God. He's like, I just want to be with you. I don't care where I am."
Like, he knows.
That's a good attitude to have, because we literally lived on the beach in Monterey Bay in a resort neighborhood.
Wow.
It's a big ask, but he's like, Yeah, he doesn't hesitate. So I'm looking in St. Louis the following morning and afternoon, and it just doesn't feel right. This is home. St. Louis is home, but I'm like, this is where God wants me to be. So I got quiet at dinner with my friend, the realtor, and I received Franklin County. So I tell my friend, I said, God says Franklin County. So we widen the search on the MLS to find where I now live, which is about an hour west of St. Louis, out in the country. I got 10 acres here, beautiful place. Anyway, so we sell our home quickly, told to urgently move home in December. It's March and we're in rural Missouri. Everybody thinks, I'm cuckoo's Cocoa Puffs. Like, who's telling Regan doing what? And my son, he was cute. He's like, Mom, I don't know who you're connected to, but I don't know why they would say this. I'm teaching yoga on my back lawn as an act of service, getting to know people, I didn't know a single person. And so I'm teaching yoga. I'm getting a vision and downloads for this huge building that was a garage that I now have as my yoga center. Just, doing that big energy directs. I don't like to say big guy because he's not a man. Anyway, that's a whole other podcast. Anyway, it's another day. And in meditation, I'm told to urgently go to a doctor. So urgent's in both messages. So I look on Google, I find a country doctor. He can see me the next day. That's the gift of living in a small town. What do doctors do when you see them? They listen to your heart. And he just looked at me and goes, Regan, something's wrong. There's a really loud murmur. We need to get you scheduled for an echocardiogram as quickly as we can, which was the following day. And the day after that is the day I learned I was dying and that I had a congenital heart defect. And the only solution was open heart surgery to replace my aortic valve, which had become highly calcified. And the reason God told me to urgently move home is Barnes Hospital, where I was born in St. Louis, would be the go-to hospital here for anything big. Just happens to be one of the best places in the world for aortic valve replacement. So that happened on a Friday morning in July of 22, right? So December 21, I'm told to go home, get here. I don't know, 2 months after I got here, then I'm getting cut open. And I had no fear. I don't fear death. And I can certainly share with the listeners why that is. It's hard on my family. It seemed all very sudden and very serious. I wrote letters to my sons and I wrote letters to my surgical team and brought them gifts that fateful morning, July 29th. And I was cleared from the ICU the following morning and I was home by Tuesday. And come Tuesday, Ralph Damiano, the head of all of it at Barnes, the head of cardiothoracic surgery, kind of pats my leg playfully and looks at me and says, Regan, there is no medical explanation of you. Medically, there's no reason why you were alive prior to the surgery. It was the worst aortic valve he'd ever seen in a 40-year career. And if you have less than 0.2 centimeters, which isn't a lot of room, for blood to flow through your aortic valve, it's considered not capable of sustaining life. And that's what mine was. And I was teaching yoga. So anyway, in response to his, statement, I said, do you believe in Jesus Christ? He said, I do. I said, well, that's the only explanation I have. And then months later, I was at a funeral for that Christian mystic friend of mine that I referenced at the beginning. He died suddenly. And I just wanted to, celebrate him. He was such a dear friend and I was devastated. Anyway, I just wanted to go to the beach after the funeral. And this is how traditional Christian I am. It was Palm Sunday and I had to Google what is Palm Sunday. Big. And sometime, I don't know when, but I went to go to the beach. I just wanted to be in the sunshine. And my husband had sweetly bought me a bathing suit with a zipper so I could cover up my scar to protect it from the sun. So I didn't have any clothes on. I was, getting ready to go. And I see myself in the mirror and I'm like, my scar looks different. And I get a little closer. And sure enough, I don't know when it happened. I was looking at it every day, but I have a crucifix on my chest. And I showed that to my surgeon. He wept. And he said, well, Regan, that's another miracle because it's a vertical cut. So that's just what's happened to me. I am not a traditional Christian. I could speak about that all day long, but I am absolutely a student of Yeshua. That is his name. We don't even, call him by his name. And he taught the law of one. He taught that. Everything else, Christian doctrine, half of it in the New Testament, is what Paul thought and said. I don't follow the teachings of Paul. I follow the teachings of Jesus or Yeshua, and they're very different teachings.
Wow. I felt all of that, like cold chills, all of it. I'm like, wow, I don't even know what to even say. That's just such a powerful story. I mean, like, that was your life. Absolutely remarkable. And so now you take this and you get to live out what? What do you do with your gift?
You embody it as best you can every day. It's not about the what. We get hung up on what we're doing, for a living or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that that doesn't matter. Of course it does. But it's the how.
Yeah.
It's how you treat everyone. Am I perfect at that? Of course not. Do I still have work to do? Of course I do. But the aim is the same.
Yeah.
Right? And so can I just embody what I know?
Yeah.
And
Every day.
every day and just hold that. I for a while I was caught up in the what. So I was, creating a lot of content and I was on Instagram, doing this video and that video. And I got quiet like I always do. And because I was just beginning to feel like that's not, no. And God was like, it's not about any of that. It's about the energetics you hold. That's how you change the world. It's not what you say. Nobody is going to do a darn thing based on what you say. If it were only that easy. And in fact, my dear, brilliant mother, when I told her that I had this opportunity to be part of the teaching staff at the Heart Math Institute and, teach executive renewal and inner quality management, I mean, I thought I had arrived in my
Yeah.
in my spiritual vocation, right? With all I think a little bit of ego that I didn't even know I was holding about it at the time, right? And my mom, in her clarity, just looks at me and goes, "You know what, honey? Nobody's going to change because they go to your workshop."
Dang.
And she's right. And she didn't say that to take anything away from me. It was more, I mean, she struggled. She knew that she wasn't disciplined. She had all the right books. She had a guru that I met when I was 7, like all the things. None of that is where it's at. It's through disciplined practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you need to see a video or read some of the New Testament or the Gnostic Gospels or the Vedas or the Gita, or the Quran, like whatever it is. Maybe so. But at the end of the day, that's not what informs a moment. It's your energetic choice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always like an intuition led, path is what I feel. And you can speak to your story. You can speak to my story. We all have our own stories of how we've arrived in said places that we are in this time and space at the moment. But I do feel like for it to even begin to make sense, you can't talk it into somebody. They would have to, it's kind of like quitting alcohol, for example, if I can even use that example. But it's like you can't really have an intervention or force someone to go to AA. That's got to be their decision to change and their decision to make those tiny steps moving forward. But, like, I love being an example about it. Like, that's the calling for me, like, just being an example of how you can make these tiny shifts and what that feels and looks like. And then you look back and 30 days later, you're like, "Wow, that really does work," or, "That really did help me." And I really do feel like I've embodied something new and positive in my life.
Yeah, I
So
mean, even Yeshua said, you can't put new wine in old wineskins.
mm,
So any new awareness that you have, that you read, that you hear, has to be embodied in a renewed container or that frequency, right, of that wisdom can't be held.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what you eat, right? How you treat your vessel, knowing how to utilize the breath, right? All the things. Those are, I mean, that's why I love the yoga tradition so much because it's an 8-point playbook for conscious union with God. And just like Yeshua's teachings, I mean, yoga, now isn't what it was intended to be. Yoga for fitness or goat yoga or trapeze yoga or all the things. It's like, oh, that's something else. That ain't yoga.
Yes. You got a mat. It must be yoga. Oh my gosh. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. It's a hit or something else. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm leading a retreat on Saturday here at my place about the 8 limbs. I mean, a deeper dive into the 8 limbs and also a deep dive into how each limb aligns beautifully with the teaching of Yeshua. I mean, it wasn't until I came to the Bible Belt that I heard that yoga leads to Satan and all sorts of things that you just don't hear. You just don't hear that in Santa Cruz, California.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear other things. So anyway, there's just so much distortion.
There is. And it's like paganism and everything else. And like you would think there's just negative witchcraft. I live in the heart of Kentucky. I know exactly what you're saying. Like I've been called it all.
Yeah, but again, sit down with any church leader, show them the 8 limbs and say, okay, so which one are you protesting or taking issue with? I don't know how they could. But anyway, everybody's just finding their way and I don't claim to know. I just know that whatever I'm connected to saved my life. And that's been true more than once. I mean, that's the magic in my title, Tragic Magic, is all these moments of intervention you can't explain rationally.
Yeah.
And that's available to all of us. It's about what are you devoted to?
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's the conventional program. They're devoted to making a living, to material acquisition, to their own comfort. I mean, I say on my website, life is a lot more than just waking, working, eating, being entertained, and sleeping.
Yeah.
But sadly, a lot of people don't make time for much else and then wonder why they feel so bad.
Yeah. Or wake up at the end and like, where did my life go?
Yeah. Or, the one thing you're guaranteed to experience, which is your own death, yet most people are completely unprepared.
Right.
They're not at peace with themselves. They don't have a point of view that comforts them about what's next, right? I mean, imagine how terrifying that would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I have nothing but compassion. I mean, it brings me to tears. I can't imagine. And I have people in my life that are quite sick right now. And I know they, don't have the same things to lean on.
Yeah. I could name a few as well.
Yeah, and
sure.
it's like get started. Don't wait till you're facing death to figure that out. Have that then be this expansive time, right? Like
Be in it now.
yeah, of really just upping the presence because you don't have a lot of time in this shell. You're running out of time in the shell. But newsflash, you live forever, just not the body.
Right. Right. So when you have your retreats, are they all always at your yoga center or do you travel with them?
I mean, I guess I could and probably should. Yeah, I mean, that might be fun to go somewhere warm as I look at the snow out these windows. Yeah, let me, you're not the first to ask me about that. I mean, it'd be fun just to have a retreat. If half the podcast hosts that I've had conversations with over the last year, if it was just us, that would be remarkable.
Count me in.
I mean, I've had such beautiful conversations with such beautiful people. I didn't know that I needed it as much as I did. It's been a transition, certainly living where I do, and it's lonely.
It can be. It can be. I find your story just so uncanny to how I need and what I needed to hear, especially like again, like right now in my life. It is just so much fun putting this synchronicity on top of what is all already existing for me. But what I love the most is you had that visit and you were 27, and I had a similar type experience when I was 33. And it was just like, you will listen to me now type thing. And it was in the middle of the night. Like I woke up, made eye contact with it, and then just was like, whatever, go back to bed type thing. And it was just like, I can't unsee it anymore. I can't continue in the way that I'm continuing anymore. Like it was just like a stopgap. Nothing was allowed this to be the same from then on out. And I was actually pregnant at the time. So I thought, well, I'll move. So I moved to another house. But my dreams and what was going on was my dreams were like, no, you will move. You will move back to where you came from. I was in the city. And I was like, I don't want to move back. I don't want to go there. So that's not really an option. But every single time, it was like I was haunted by my dreams. It was like I had to go back. And I had my son, and in another type of dream scenario, I was like, you will not have him here in the city. You will have him at home. So I was conceded to that. So I transferred doctors like 4 weeks before he was born, did all the things, and just to find out 2 days before he was born that he was breech, right? So having that, not no preparation or anything, but it was like, oh, I was supposed to be with this doctor who is sought out of the entire world and trusted. People from other countries come here just to have their babies with him. And it's wild, right? So then I'm still having the dream to move back, move back, move back. Well, ended up I did, and he was 6 months, but long story short, all of this, like, synchronicities and things have just kind of, like, landed, and there was no turning back to having this old lifestyle anymore. And I had to redo and reimagine everything I am.
Mhm.
Rebirth, basically, from friends to my lover type to family, my career, all of it. It is just shed. So when you are in that, did this year, and I don't know if you are in tune to any of this, but like knowing that this was the year of the snake, for example, in 2025, and how you go through this shedding. Was there anything in particular with this year, since we are kind of at the end of the year, that was like real monumental that gets to keep growing in for next year?
Yes, in that I'm spending more time remembering other times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's always kind of come in flashes. And I mean, I always had sort of a certain awake understanding of who I've been, and what I've known. But yeah, I would say this year has been more of that. And so in connecting to those times, right? Part of my soul history, you can't help but contrast it with how you're living right in this American life. You know, I've often asked the question, what does a high priestess in this culture look like?
Mm, I have not asked that, but now I want to.
Yeah, and I don't believe it's, sitting under a tree waiting for your, initiates to come and hang out with you. This culture needs a different approach. So, yeah, I'm just in that question a lot. But again, going back to the wood and water, right? It informs just what you choose to embody because it's always choice. I know people think that they're not making choices in this regard, but they are. So I'm just choosing to, I don't know, become more aligned with the integrity of who I've been because I haven't always been great this time around is Regan. I mean, I write about that pretty openly in my
Mm.
book. And who knows in those other times in my soul history? I mean, I think we're always a mixed bag. Yeah. And I'm taking comfort in that because I do believe just like COVID was pretty dystopian and, there's a lot of ways to look at that time in our history. But it's getting darker. I mean, it's more and more the kind of spiritual warfare that these, ancient books have talked about. And so we all have our part. And, if you think about it kind of like a video game, people talk about the Matrix or whatever. I don't care about that. But whatever this is, you need to consciously decide who do you want to be?
Right.
Right. What character running in this program do you want to be? And, most people want to be a good guy, right? They don't want to be a bad guy. Most people want to be a good guy or they want to be the hero. Well, you know what? If that's true, you got work to do.
Yeah. It's not free.
And it's not
Uh,
easy and we are going to need more and more people to awaken to the truth of who they are. That's how we get through what's coming. And
uh,
we find a way to unify energetically through this, commitment and devotion to embodying the love of God and having no fear.
that is such a powerful thing that I think oftentimes gets overlooked in words like truth, like love, for example. You can throw it at the wall these days and see what sticks type words. But to be in it and be of it, like walk in the walk, be about it type thing, like be in the truth and be yourself in an authentic way in love with God and showing that in this entire soul to for
Yeah.
the souls. It's taking this as a energetic shift. It's taking it as a community, like having to come into this together.
Well, and I mean, it begins with energetic responsibility,
Yeah,
right? Like that's where it starts and ends, actually. Yeah,
I
and it,
like
it
that.
isn't easy, and there's a lot here designed to keep you from it. Everything from how we educate, people. I mean, all of it. None of it is designed to awaken you. And institutions are not going to educate you in such a way that you have the information you need to overthrow them, right? That's not what you're going to get. You're going to get, the program to, sit down, shut up, do what you're told.
That hits.
And and people also mistake thinking that someone who's awakened is like just universally, just sweet as can be. Well, no, like Jesus went in the temple, saw the corruption, and that's when he really got in trouble, is when he decided to take that on, right? The spiritual corruption. And by the way, have you noticed? I mean, there's plenty of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have discernment and to have this direct relationship and to embody it as best you can and to be fearless to be your awakened self in a culture that wants you asleep and compliant.
Wow. Hit the money. Yeah. Tell me more.
I mean, I think COVID was a dry run. I
Hmm.
think COVID was a dry run, and sadly, more than 70% of people worldwide elected to get this for all sorts of reasons, many of whom it was either lose your job or, I mean, I
Yeah.
get it. I understand it. I have compassion for it. And we were awfully compliant awfully quickly.
Yeah.
And those that weren't, were vilified,
Yeah.
were excluded, right? Like all the things. So, like just look at it, just open your heart and look at that time in history and maybe just ask your higher self, what was that?
Oh,
Because digital ID's coming. It's already in the UK as a right to work. I canceled 2 trips to Europe because of the biometric collection and the things they're doing as of October 12th. I'm like, you know what? Not playing. I don't have any illusions about keeping any of this from happening, but
right.
I can be principled for myself and say, you know what? I'm not playing.
Yeah.
which may mean if John was right as he was hallucinating on that island in exile and wrote Revelation, like if he's right, that mark of the beast could very well be this digital ID where you can't buy or sell without it.
Wow. My mom always has said, like, she's just like, read the Bible, you'll know what's coming. Like, it's there. Hidden in plain sight, you know?
Well, I
It's
don't
the-
know. Humans had a lot to do with what ended up in that book.
But yeah. Yeah, they did.
I think
And
everybody has to understand that it reflects an editorial process. And
yeah,
there was a lot of differing points of view about it all, particularly about what Jesus taught that didn't make it into that book.
that wasn't there. Exactly. The things that didn't get to go in.
But were hidden in a jar in Egypt and found in 1945. So just like today, it probably makes sense to read the information that institutions are trying to censor. It probably makes sense to look at sacraments and points of view about the early followers of Jesus and what they remember learning, because something like the Gospel of Thomas has a pretty different feeling quality to it. It's pretty mystical and it's pretty much about inner transmutation.
Interesting. Wow.
And the Dead Sea Scrolls too. Yeah. Again, all those things were protected, right? I mean, in the early, after Yeshua was killed, yeah, those earliest followers, the Essenes, a very devotional sect of Judaism. Anyway, I mean, Jesus wanted his brother James to carry on his ministry. Most Christians don't even know who James is or that Jesus had a brother. And
Yeah.
Paul, a guy that comes on the scene 30 years later, who doesn't know Jesus, didn't walk with him, but claims to know him and has a doctrine that's very different from what Yeshua taught.
Then writes the whole thing.
And writes half of the book,
Yeah.
anyway.
Uh,
I think, yeah. And then so going back to that question about the snake and this year, I really will say this year has all been about my devotional exploration of the truth of those times. Who was Yeshua? What did he really teach? And what was going on historically? Right. So hearing from a number of different points of view about that, and then spending time with that Christ consciousness that he embodied, as did Mary Magdalene, right? Taking that in as best I can and just kind of feeling my way to what feels true and what
yeah.
doesn't. So, I wrote an essay on Substack. I've lost some friends recently about all this, which
I believe it.
fascinating to me. But I wrote 2 essays on Substack. I mean, I've written a lot more than that. But one was, I love Jesus and I'm not a Christian. And the other was, what if Paul was the false prophet that Jesus warned his disciples about?
Dang.
He said,
Yeah.
somebody's coming. They're going to claim to represent me. And look at the fruits of that person, not their words. And Paul was a guy that was responsible for the actual murdering of the earliest followers of Yeshua. That's
Yeah.
even in the Bible, right? Some
Yeah.
of the truth
As
of that.
Saul.
Yeah, some of the truth of that made it in. And then he has this, awakening and claims to get a new gospel from Yeshua. Okay. I mean, if that helps you be a better person, like, great. It's not my truth.
I could talk to you for hours. Now I want to.
And it's just
I
like,
want to
when,
like
when
looking
Jesus
for.
was on the cross, if he was dying for us, don't you think he would have said so as he's bleeding out? But he says, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, he was against blood sacrifice in the temple. That's why he, threw over those tables. He was like, have mercy, not sacrifice. But then he's the blood sacrifice? Just doesn't make any sense. But, that's not going to win over,
Yeah.
a bunch of people that, have been indoctrinated to believe something else. And that's okay,
Yeah.
if your doctrine helps you be loving and kind, compassionate, merciful, generous.
I think a lot of that too is a fear of dismantling the loyalties that you learn as a child. A lot of this Bible Belt, so to speak, is a lot of loyalties that you learn. And it's loyalties that maybe perhaps God is a mean God, or he is punishing type of God, a judgment type of God who is going to damn you to hell or damn you to heaven or whatever that is going to be. And I just don't like that ideology at all and that whole methodology because it's just not something I get on board with. I don't see.
It's just not the God that I have a direct relationship with. I mean, I said this
Yeah.
to a Pentecostal pastor recently. Like, the God I'm connected to would never require a blood sacrifice for any reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just not, yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that he's going to sit here and judge you on who's going to come in or not. I think you can have your heaven and hell in your human experience.
I think
It's
that's what people do.
so it's not you live so much for this afterlife when the whole purpose is this presence in this moment, like right now.
Yeah, and your actions matter. I mean, that's another thing that Paul changed. He's like, "Oh, don't worry about that. Say he's your Lord and Savior, and
Just go repent on Sunday.
yeah, and have faith, and you're good." And Jesus
Yeah.
is like, "No, no, no, no. It's all about what you choose to do. Yeah, it's all about the do." And
Yeah,
that's the hard part.
it
There's
is.
nothing difficult to, proclamate, to proclaim something.
Right.
I mean,
It
that's
just comes back to that action, like that brought us here in the first place.
yeah. And, if your faith and your relationship with God has you kinder, more loving, more generous, more compassionate, more forgiving,
Yeah.
great.
That's where it's at. Yeah. Wow. So for my listeners, you have a book and like
Tragic Magic.
try
They can find that on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, either as a paperback or an ebook. There's some, yeah, and if they just want to stay current with my writing, I'm, not doing any content creation right now on Instagram or Facebook. I'm taking a long, maybe forever break.
good
Uh,
for you.
and I'm just writing on Substack. I have a
Yeah.
small following. It doesn't cost you anything, but I just feel like long form these times require it. There's not much I can say in a short, grab your attention Instagram reel. I mean, maybe there is, but I've been guided to write. So that's what I've been doing.
Honestly, I feel like that's why I have this podcast is just to move into more meaningful conversations and less look at me for 2 seconds. No, I want to have a full on conversation, something that means something to me. And if it means something to me, it means something to more people. And that's
Mhm.
me being in the business of myself, having these real conversations about real things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate you here today. It has been so lovely getting to talk to you and being in your presence. Like, this is just great. You are such a light. Like, I can
Oh,
feel it. I can totally feel it. So, thank you so much for being with us today.
well, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Wasn't she absolutely remarkable? I love, love, love listening to people who have found their spiritual awakening. And I do feel that it is different for everyone, yet it's still so universally sound. It's so amazing when you get to talk to people who literally just walk in peace with that certainty, with that true knowing of who they are. And that is exactly what Regan does. And it is also exactly what she offers to people in her community and people who learn from her and use her as their own spiritual guide to their own self awakening, whether it be through coaching or yoga practice. So I I encourage you to check her out. I encourage you to keep finding out who you are and always knowing that being in the business of yourself is where it's at. So, without taking any more of your time, which I 100% just am so grateful for, I do hope that you would share this podcast if you think of someone that it may resonate with. And if you love it, please give us some stars and write a review. And just thank you so much for showing up with your time. It's the most valuable form of currency. So let's bring it in. And after an inhale, bring it to an om. The light in me sees and honors the light in each of you as we share this same light.